What's wrong with the Cowboys? This was a loss that really devastated me as a Cowboys fan, but again, it is something that probably should have been expected because it's been happening for the last 26 years. That's on a personal standpoint. So let's talk about what really happened. This was not the ref's fault, Cowboys fans. Get that through your head. It was through my head the second after the game ended. Yes, I wish that the ref could have gotten up and spotted the ball earlier. So Dak could have had time to spike the ball, and they would have had one more play from the 25-yard line. But still, even bearing that situation probably would have resulted in a San Francisco win. It's very hard to score from the 25-yard line, especially when the defense knows you've one play left. And the Cowboys were just really undisciplined. 14, I believe it was, penalties in that game. They had the most penalties and penalty yardage throughout the course of the season, yet they still had 12 wins. That just shows that there's no discipline on this team. I don't know where the root of that is from, if it's from the coaching, if it's from the leaders on the team in terms of players. I don't know if it's from all the players in general. I don't know and I don't care. All I know is there has to be some accountability and some discipline. It's been a mess all year for Dallas, and this is one of the most talented rosters. It is. And I said that coming into the year, and a lot of people thought I was crazy, but we saw how talented this roster is. They can beat anyone, and the issue was really they weren't disciplined enough. And part of that also isn't penalty yardage. It's how they've played against good teams this year. Against good teams, the Cowboys have come out sloppy in pretty much every showing. Against the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and now the Niners. Their first quarter has been unbelievably treacherous. The offense and defense just played horrible in the first quarter against Arizona, Kansas City, Vegas, and then this wild card game against San Francisco. I mean, go look it up. Just go watch the first quarter from all these games. Go look at the box scores from the first quarter of all. It's horrible. In the second quarter, they start to play a little bit better, but they usually find themselves down by somewhere between 7 to 20 points at halftime. This is the Cowboys. And then the third quarter, their defense finally starts shutting them down, and the offense struggles to get going. And in the fourth quarter, the Cowboys' offense finally gets a surge, and the defense is still playing decent, but they just miss an important stop and lose the game. And it's been like that because what I'm boiling this down to is we've just had slow starts against every good team we've played. Even New England, a game that we won. That's really been the story of the Cowboys this year. Just undisciplined in terms of penalties, and then undisciplined in the way we come out. We're just not the Dallas Cowboys that you see against bad teams or later in ball games. And it's disappointing, all this talent that was really wasted for Dallas this year, because next year, I don't know if we're going to see as good of a roster. We're going to have to nail the draft again. We're going to have to find another Micah Parsons, another Trayvon Diggs, because we have a lot of free agents. Randy Gregory, Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson. There's a lot more. Jaron Curse. I don't know. Dalton Schultz, Leighton Vander Esch. All right, so I want to go to Dak. Let's talk about Dak for a minute. This was obviously not a good game for Dak. It was not one of his better games. And it's hard to win a game, though, when your team gets outrushed 169 to 77. Your team gets outrushed by 100 yards. Of course, the team that has 100 more rushing yards is probably going to have a quarterback that can manage the game better, because that probably means they're going to be leading if they're dominating the ground game. And it's also hard to win games when you have a B or B minus coach. And Dak's a guy that I believe can win a Super Bowl. A lot of people don't. I believe he can, but everything has to be going right for him. One thing I said about him, there's guys like Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, these guys that can elevate their team. Dak Prescott's not one of those guys. Dak Prescott's a guy that needs to be elevated. He needs to have the circumstances around him be an A+, and if that happens, he can win a ring. And with a B or B minus coach, that's not possible with Dak. It's just the truth behind him. I think Dak's a good quarterback. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, and I'm saying this as a Cowboys fan. And the numbers show he's 6-0 against the NFC East, but 6-6 against everybody else. Dak Prescott is an above-average quarterback. He's a good quarterback against the rest of the league. And then when he plays the NFC East, yeah, cool. You can go throw for 24 touchdowns and 2 picks and implode your stats. But at the end of the day, that's not going to win you playoff games, and that's what we saw Sunday. So Dak moving forward, he's your guy. You paid him all this money. He's a great leader. He's A+ at the podium. He's a B+, A- quarterback. He can win big games if everything goes right for him. And that's just the truth. Dak would win huge games his rookie year, like in Pittsburgh, in Green Bay. He would win these games when he had a good rushing attack. It's just the truth. Rookie Zeke was different. And you only have 77 rushing yards this game. That's tough to push the narrative that you can have any quarterback that can have 77 rushing yards and win a ball game against a very talented Niners team. It's very hard to do. And Dak, I don't want to say he did all he could because he did not play a perfect ball game by any means, but he's not the one to blame for the Cowboys' loss. That's where I want to transition into coaching here. Mike McCarthy, he probably deserves to stay next year. I'm going to say that. A lot of people think he should lose his job in Dallas. I don't think so. I think he deserves a second shot. I mean, his first year, he was just decimated by Dak Prescott and other injuries. And then his second year, he wins 12 games. You can't have too big of a knock on him besides time management. That's really the only knock I have on McCarthy. Where I think the issue is play calling. It has been horrible over the second half of the season, and that starts with Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore is a great play caller. I think he is great at drawing out the X's and O's. What he's not great at doing is getting his best targets the football. And I've noticed this. Amari Cooper's noticed this. CeeDee Lamb's noticed this. They've come out and publicly spoken about this in front of the media, about their frustrations. Here's an example. Let's take Amari Cooper and compare him to other top receivers in the league and look at how many targets they're getting per game. Cooper Kupp is getting 11.2 targets per game. Devontae Adams is getting 9.9 targets per game. Jay Jettis is getting 9.8 targets a game. And Cooper's getting 6.1. So when people are saying that Amari Cooper has fallen off, it's because Kellen Moore doesn't know how to scheme him up and get him the football. Because I believe Amari Cooper's a top 3, maybe top 1 route runner in the league. And you can't find a way to get him the football? That's unexcusable. Now, our offense was way too predictable on Sunday against the Niners, and that's probably the reason that we lost. It was run on first down, throw something short, second and third, don't take any shots deep, and that's really how we've been the second half of the season, and defensive coordinators have noticed how predictable we've become. We need a new play caller in Dallas. That's what it boils down to for me. I think that the play calling has absolutely been the issue. Coaching in general, there's a few clock management issues that Mike McCarthy's had that have frustrated me. We beat the Chargers on a last-second field goal. It's a 57-yarder, but if Mike McCarthy could have managed the time better, it could have been a 40-yard field goal. And then obviously against the Niners, that quarterback draw. See, I'm still trying to figure out. A lot of people have come to a conclusion on if they think it was a good call or a bad call. You know, you have 14 seconds on the clock. You think you have time to get up there. And part of that is due to the fact that the ref was standing there and diddling behind the freaking play for a solid 2 seconds while Dak Prescott was running the ball in the middle. And so the ref wasn't going full speed to go place the ball so the Cowboys could spike it. You know, maybe he had some money on the Niners. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm not going to make an excuse out of it. I'm not. They couldn't have targeted the sidelines because the Niners were heavily covering the sidelines and everything deep, as they should have. Very smart football. So the only thing the Cowboys could have done is got something inbounds. So they got as much yards as they could inbounds, and then Dak slid, and just an unfortunate situation, 1 second too late. The main issue I think there is with Dallas is that there's no identity. Not the main issue, but one of the main issues. If you look at the top teams in the league, Kansas City, they've been dominating the West for the past 3 years. Their identity is they're just going to throw it for a mile on your head. That's been their narrative. That's Mahomes, that's Kelsey, that's Tyreek Hill, that's Andy Reid. The Titans, they're the number 1 seed in the AFC for a reason. They found their identity, and that is Mike Vrabel being physical. They have a physical football team. Every top team in this league has an identity. The Packers are going to destroy you in the turnover margin. Tampa Bay, you know, they're really aggressive. The Ravens are really aggressive, and they're going to run the football down your throat. All right, every top team has an identity. What's the Cowboys' identity? I don't know. They pretend to be this team that's going to run the football over you. That rarely happens. Usually it goes something like when you're playing a good team with the Cowboys. Zeke will struggle early. Zeke will struggle often. You'll go down a couple scores, and then Dak will have to lead him back. And sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. And you're going to end up with 77 rushing yards. That's kind of how it's been for the Cowboys against good teams this year. Good teams this year. They have not been able to establish a true rushing attack against true opponents. And then, is there a narrative passing the ball with this prolific trio of receivers they have? I don't know. When Amari Cooper's getting 6.1 targets per game, CeeDee Lamb has had a very quiet second half to the season. Cedric Wilson has been the guy, and he's obviously not your best receiver. It's hard to say that that's been your strength. Is it the offensive line? Well, they're too injured. We'll talk on the defensive side of the ball. I guess you could say it's turnovers, but it's inconsistency. I mean, it seems like everyone on that in that secondary is inconsistent according to the media, especially Trevon Diggs. Another story for another day about Trayvon. But yeah, Dallas just doesn't have that identity that these top teams in the AFC and NFC do. It's just a thing. You have to have an identity in today's league. And that's not really a today thing. That's how it's always been. Another thing that you have to be at the top of the top, and this is not a current day NFL thing. This is a thing that has been an everyday NFL thing since the merger. I mean, since Super Bowls have existed, you have to have this. And to be a good team, to be a great team, I should say, you have to have the quarterback and the coach figured out. You have to. Look at the top teams. It's no coincidence that the top 4 coaches in the NFC are the ones that are still coaching for their team. Bruce Arians, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, and Kyle Shanahan. Those are my top 4 coaches in the NFC. Those are the 4 coaches that are contending for an NFC championship, right? And then the coach, and then the quarterback. You obviously have to have the quarterback figured out. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. Those might be your 3 best quarterbacks in the NFC this year. Those are your quarterbacks that are also contending to win an NFC championship. And then on the AFC side of things, Patrick Mahomes is playing Josh Allen, the 2 best quarterbacks in the AFC this week, and then Joe Burrow. Those are the top 3 quarterbacks in the AFC, I would say. Your top 3 AFC and top 3 NFC quarterbacks are still alive. And your top coaches are still alive. Andy Reid, Sean McDermott, Mike Vrabel, Zach Taylor, we don't really know yet. He's young. The only really elite coach out there, elite coaches that aren't still contending, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, guys like that. You're seeing a trend. Quarterbacks and coaches, when you figure those out, your team's going to be very successful come January and February. Just saying. And I don't know if Dallas has figured that out. I think they have a B-plus quarterback and a B or B-minus head coach. And it's just going to be hard to win playoff games with that philosophy. That's why the 49ers knew they had their coach. They knew they had an A-plus coach, an A-plus play caller, and Kyle Shanahan. But Jimmy Garoppolo is a B quarterback. So can you win a Super Bowl with an A-plus coach and a B quarterback? Well, that's why they got Trey Lance, the kid that's very big, very mobile, has a very strong arm, very accurate. That's why they traded away 3 first-rounders for this kid, because they believe this is a potential A-plus quarterback. You get the A-plus quarterback, the A-plus coach. They think that this tandem of Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance can dominate the NFC for years to come. They took a risk. You have to take risks in today's league. And Dallas with a B coach and a B-plus quarterback, they're above average. That's what Dallas is right now. Dallas has some things to figure out moving forward. Going into this offseason, some suggestions I would have would be find a new play caller, get the offensive line younger. I mean, Tyron Smith is hurt every other week. And then you might have to release some guys that are just overpaid, quite frankly. DeMarcus Lawrence, Zeke Elliott. With lots of free agency, you're going to need every bit of cap space if you're the Cowboys to re-sign some of these guys. You might have to release some players, and it's going to suck, but that's part of the offseason, right? So these are my suggestions on how I would fix the Cowboys. Heartbreaking loss Sunday, but in typical Cowboys fashion, maybe next year.